Welcome to the Divine Radiance Project with your host, Stacey Turner, and co-host, Emma McDonald, where we share all about reclaiming your radiance as women in business, holistic health, money, mindset, and juggling it all around mum life. A place for women to learn about financial independence, entrepreneurship, and balance. From women who aren't scared to speak their mind and their truth. It's time to shine your brightest self and be the lighthouse. Oh my goodness. Episode 1 of the Divine Radiance Project. We are a little bit excited to kick off this adventure together, and we thought we'd use episode 1 to give you a bit of insight into who we are so that you know who your hosts are and what we're going to be sharing with you across the time that we're running this podcast. So I guess, Em, if you want to start and just give us a brief introduction on who you are and where you are and what you do.
Where I am. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I am in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. And I am a naturopath. I'm a mum. I'm a beauty therapist. I am a lover of all things natural and low tox, but I'm also all about empowerment of others, which I didn't realize had been something that I was until probably the last 12 months. When, actually it's been closer to 2 years now, but maybe 18 months. But when my daughter was born and I kind of lost who I was for a little while. I came back to me over the last 18 months and found that that's where I wanted to be for other women. Like, I don't want women to ever feel like they're alone or not empowered to make choices. But I guess taking a step back, like a while back, before you and I even met, I had some of my own health stuff happening, and I knew I needed to make empowered choices because I didn't agree with certain systems and ways that things had been done in the past. And I have been a beauty therapist for over a decade, and looking after other people is what lights me up. I always knew that, and reminding people that it's okay to take care of yourself as well as others. It's more important to take care of yourself. And then from a skin aspect, as a beauty therapist, it was based around skin, and a lot of skin issues come from internal issues. And then from there, I need more information. I needed more tools in my tool belt. And that's when I went back to study naturopathy. This was after I had my own illness stuff and was looking into lots of different things and going down a lot of rabbit holes, and realized that I needed to be empowered to make better choices, and choices that I was secure myself to make. And then had my own businesses, and then decided I wanted to be a mum. And then that process woke up a whole new world in empowered birthing and information around that. And then we met in one of the courses that we did in hypnobirthing. And it's funny because I didn't actually like you initially. I was like, who is this loud person that's like me? I usually take that light. No. And then, which we obviously know that story now. I told you after, obviously became best friends. But we bonded on so much. And I was talking in my stories today about this, actually, was that we've definitely lived life together in a different life, which may sound a bit woo-woo to some people, but, there'll be a lot of this outside the box thinking in this podcast. So get ready for it. And we just clicked, apart from the fact that initially we were like, oh, what is this relationship? And then it just, merged from there. And then our babies were born, and we had a mother's group, and then it just grew from there. And I said to you, let's do a podcast in our early new mama life. Like, honestly, what did we have to share apart from sleep deprivation and how sore our nipples were? But it was like, okay, well, I feel like we have so much to share. And you were like, veto it for just now. And you've come back full circle. You know, obviously we've been working together closely over the last couple of years and building a vision that has only just really begun. So now it's about how much can we enrich the lives of others? How much can we empower other women to stand on their own in their radiance divinely? And how can we change the world doing that? We may only seem like small voices right now, but our vision is so great that we can't wait to share it with you. But yeah, Stace, tell me you, babe.
Well, are you trying to make me cry like within 10 minutes of launching into the podcast?
It's usually the other way around. It does. I'm glad you asked me to talk first.
Like, do I have to speak now? Okay. Wow, just wow to all of that. So also what's funny is when you did suggest that we start a podcast, I think I'd literally just wrapped up the Chief Life podcast. So my hubby and I used to run a podcast with our online health and wellness business, which I'll share a little bit more about in a minute. But yeah, I think I just got to the point where I was like trying to like peel back layers and simplify life. And then you asked me that. I'm like, it's not a no, but it's a not right now, which is hilarious because that's what you said to me when I asked you to do our current businesses together. It was like you said no, and in your head it was a not right now, whereas to me it sounded like a hard fucking no. Oh yeah, we forgot to talk about whether we were going to swear in this podcast or not. Explicit language
comes out
will be featured.
Yeah.
Apologies in advance.
We have trucker mouths, you know.
We're Australian. Well, I'm not, but
yeah,
we live in Australia, so you know, I have an Australian accent. I'm sure I sound Australian.
We get passionate, so
it's going to happen. All right, so I am Stacey. I also live in Brisbane, but I was not born and bred here. I grew up in the UK, where I was born. My mother is Zimbabwean, and my father is English. So fast forward, because I'm not going to give you the full life story, but fast forward to being 20 years old and immigrating to the other side of the world on my own. I did live with my grandparents when I first moved to Australia. I started in Sydney. I studied nutrition there and was well indoctrinated into the system. I did as I was told, you know, went to uni like a good girl and absolutely hated it. And now in hindsight, I can say I probably should have done a college course instead, because learning how to work with people through a textbook isn't really an ideal way to learn how to work with people. Working with people, you learn by working with people. Funny that. So yes, theory-based system. Then I did placement in hospital. Again, absolutely hated it. Cool. Couldn't think of anything worse. Sending you love if you work in the hospital system. It is a very challenging place to be. And once I finished my degree, I fell into CrossFit. And I feel like there's been a lot of these synchronicities that have come into my life where I've essentially fallen into a new job because of the environment that I was in. So in I think it was like towards the end of my third or my fourth year of my honors degree, I was studying to be a PT because I thought it was ridiculous that in a 4-year nutrition degree, we had 1 hour on exercise. When like kind of in terms of health and, you know, optimizing that, kind of nutrition and exercise go hand in hand. So I took it upon myself to do my own exercise education. And in doing so, I was also doing some volunteer work with an organization that specialized in mental health in the community for 15 to 25-year-olds. They, you know, young people that had all sorts of mental health conditions like bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety. I was working in the outpatient clinic as a volunteer to help them with their personal training and to help them with their nutrition. And we actually have a published paper. Don't know if you knew that. We did a pilot study, and yeah, we found obviously beautiful relationship between exercise and nutrition and helping these young people to reduce their meds and live more fulfilling lives. So in doing that, I found a gym that these people were already connected with, where I got to go and train with the kids, 15 to 25-year-olds. I was like in my early 20s, so they were the same age as me anyway. And it was a CrossFit gym. And when they got chatting with me and they were like, oh my gosh, so you're studying to be a dietitian and you've almost finished your cert 3 and 4 in PT. Do you want a job? I'm like, fuck yeah. That's amazing. Like, just, meet these random people. And I didn't understand that I had literally been guided to this through, the energy you put out, the vibration that you attract, and was stepping more into my divine radiance at that point in my life, because my job while I was at uni was working in a pub. Not very aligned with health and well-being. So yeah, I snapped them up on that job and was there for many years. But they introduced me to CrossFit. They introduced me to, and for those of you that don't know, I mean, it's pretty well known now, but back in the day, it was very underground. I didn't even know what it was when I started doing the training, but it's constantly varied functional movement at relatively high intensity, depending on where you're at in your fitness journey. And it was very effective and it was very addictive and it was like a cult. And I loved it. And I found that I was able to excel doing that because it was like taking all of the parts of being average and putting them together. And yeah, you didn't have to be really good at any one thing. You just had to be measly okay at a bunch of stuff. And then you got better from doing a bunch of different things. So I really loved that. And it became part of a very, I don't want to say incestuous journey, but like, the CrossFit world was fairly small back then. I ended up dating one of my training buddies, and then I ended up working for CrossFit HQ, and that opened my eyes to, traveling for work and getting to do this fun adventure. Anyway, at a certain point, my health started to decline. Probably, I guess, similar to Em's journey, where if you experience these things yourself, it starts to open your eyes to other issues that are out there. I thought I was a fairly healthy person, but I had always had a number of, I always got sick. I always, if there was a cold going around, I would get it. If there was a flu, I would get it. And I didn't realize it, but through studying nutrition, I actually found out I'm a celiac and I have some other intolerances and stuff like that. Also ups and downs with mental health myself, which I never really wanted to admit to because I was supporting people in mental health, right? And if you're meant to be the expert, you don't want to own up to have had those issues. Bearing in mind that around this time, I was starting to come to the age of 25. If you know much about the brain, you'll understand that this is the age at which our prefrontal cortex has finished developing, and we understand critical thinking and we understand decision making. And that's where anxiety can start to really build even more for people as they start to get older, because they've had some life experience. They start to put things into perspective of, well, shit, now I'm like an adult. I have to do all this stuff myself. And it can be really scary at that point in your life. Mix that with a gut that wasn't working properly because I was an undiagnosed celiac, and a whole bunch of other people that were in my life that shouldn't have been, like negative influences. Yeah, I was a bit lost, to say the least. So when I kind of had a bit of a breakthrough and I worked with some naturopaths, not Emma, because I didn't know her at the time, but I worked with some naturopaths and I discovered some conditions that I have. And I worked with those to really identify what did work for me, what didn't work for me. Then I came out the other side of that and I guess reignited my passion for natural health, getting out of the indoctrinated system of being a dietitian in the hospital system or whatever that looks like, to being more of a holistic health coach. And I became really passionate then about learning what wasn't taught at uni and about real health and about how we can look after people and support them from the ground up, from the inside out, from finding the root cause of the issue. And like working with a naturopath literally changed my life. And it was, I guess, the start of going into exploring, like getting out of my fight or flight, getting out of my masculine, getting out and starting to understand like, oh, I'm a woman and these are more female appropriate training methods and ways of thinking and ways of dressing, like to embody who I was actually in this life, not who I thought I needed to be to fit into a box in a very masculine world. And I mean, understanding the patriarchy, it's all linked. And I think fast forward now to being with a partner that is actually masculine and allowing me to be in my feminine I don't think I'd ever dated a real man before. Sorry if any of my ex-boyfriends are listening to this, but I doubt they would be. Who knows? But having someone like Matthias, like, be an actual Viking and be that man, it allowed me to take the place of maiden at that point. Maiden. So we then ran our business together for over 7 years, and we now have 2 beautiful girls together. We're married with a dog. I mean, I don't know if the dog's important to share, but we seem to be, I've unpacked my whole life story here. So I think some of those things are really, really important to share in giving you guys some background on who we are. You know, I've run multiple businesses, as has Em. I think if you're listening to this and you're like, who are these peeps to be sharing about these topics? We have a lot of experience in a lot of different areas, and we're outspoken. It is a mean combo. It is a powerful combo. And now, as Em said, like, we are so passionate about helping other women to be empowered, to be inspired, to make, you know, choices from knowing all of the information. And each of these things that we have dabbled in have been almost like the apprenticeship to where we are now. And we're hoping to be the light or the fairy or the epiphany for somebody else to have those same wake up moments, whatever that looks like for you and wherever you are in this journey we call life. So that's a bit about me. I don't know if there was anything that came up in what I said that you're like, I want to know more about that. So feel free to ask away.
I mean, I know quite a bit of it. I didn't realize like a lot of the earlier stuff actually with working with the, you know, mental health and the study and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that was cool. I mean, I probably didn't take my story back as far, but maybe that's something that we can do on our own sometime, you know, if people want to know the ins and outs and the synchronicities, like things that we didn't when you're in it, you don't see it. You don't see that the universe really provides you with what you need to do at that time. And then as you up level as a human being, you go, oh, right, that was that pathway, which took me there, which was really crappy. But if I hadn't have been there, I wouldn't have seen this. Therefore, I wouldn't have gone there, you know? Yeah. So
the universe only gives you what you can handle, even if it feels uncomfortable at the time. But also, isn't it crazy that we still have the choice in that, right? Because it is a sliding doors thing. The universe may present something, but we can still say no if we're not ready to take that next step. But then that would send us on a whole nother path, which is the insanity of the whole cycle, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
And, you know, people might think, well, yeah, who are you? Like, why start a podcast? Like, you know, who are you to do that? And we're actually not so worried about that because we know that everything that we do has a purpose. Like, our vision is our responsibility. How we get to where we're going is kind of not. This has opened up another channel for us. And if we influence or empower one other person, you know, one other woman to step up and make a change, and then those people step up and make a change, like, that's the greater good. That is the enrichment that we consistently want. And we wouldn't have known that if we didn't kind of embark on the last 2 years, because for a little bit we were still finding our way. Like, there are these little bits that have happened over our lives. As you said, like, we, you know, if anyone's ever done human design before, we are both manifesting generators. We are creators of vision. I'm probably not as good as Stacey in this, but I can have the ideas and get excited about the initial stuff, but then sometimes I get a bit bored quicker and things move on. So I've definitely learned to rein in the different types of things that I could be doing. And this is where she holds me accountable to stuff like that, which is great. She's a little bit more grounded in, okay, that's a great idea, but, you know, maybe there's a little bit of a better pathway to there than just like flinging it out against the wall and hoping something sticks.
You know, what helped me with that was running a business with my husband. And a lot of people were like, how did you guys even do that for as long as you did? And I actually think it's helped to build the foundations of a strong marriage for us, because we had to have hard conversations with each other. We couldn't
just be like, meh, it'll pass. It's like, it was our business, it was our livelihood. And we had to like sit down and go, okay, how do we figure this out? How do we find the solution? And my husband was the starter and I was the finisher. So maybe it's because I had run a business prior to us being together. It's like, I ran a gym on my own in Sydney, another part of the story that I left out. But if I didn't do it, it didn't get done. But my rent was still due. And, you know, all of those things, it's like the customers, the prospects were still contact, like all of those steps that I got to hand off to other people when I worked in somebody else's gym. So then when we worked together and it's like Maddie would start stuff and he'd be like, I don't know how this is going to work out because I think he's a Manny Gen as well. He would do it and then he'd be like, meh, Stace will figure it out. I'd come in and I'd pick up all the pieces and sort it out. So, but I would also be the devil's advocate. So when he would ask a question, like, finally, I've just remembered when he first wanted to start a podcast, because he loves listening to something. He actually, if he's walking around the house, he's got his, well, maybe not now, we've got kids, but he would have headphones plugged in. He would be learning constantly. He's like a little sponge. He wants to learn. So he would always be listening to podcasts. So when we started our business, he was like, we need to do a podcast and we can interview doctors from all over the world and we can, you know, expand our knowledge and get our message out there. And I was like, no, it's like, I don't want to do that. Think about how much time that's going to take up and who wants to hear from us. And I probably had some worthiness stuff that I hadn't dealt with yet. And I was also working for CrossFit HQ at the time. And I knew that they were very opinionated in their way. And when you worked for them, you didn't speak out against them in any way, not just against the business, but also against anything that they believed in. Like if you disagreed with them, they were very quick to flick you. And at the time I thought I needed it and I was grasping onto it. So I just, I didn't want to speak out against it. And so I think it was as I got more confidence around who I was and that I didn't need that job and I started to build up income from other avenues, then I started to relax a little bit more about sharing my own voice and not feeling like I had to conform to the box of CrossFit HQ. And even saying this now feels a bit scary because I don't think I've ever really shared that publicly. It's changed ownership now, so it's a bit easier to talk a bit more freely about it. But yeah, I mean, I'm very grateful to that era and I'm very grateful for the opportunity that I had. But, you know, a lot of people look back on that where I was working for CrossFit for such a long time and it looked like the dream job to somebody in my position. And they would say things like, how could you quit that? Like so many people want to have that job. And it was stopping mine and Maddie's relationship from progressing. I was away every weekend and he was working every week. So we didn't get the chance to actually connect. And once I decided I'm done with this, and it was actually, we were in China and at the end of the level 1 course, everyone does a test. And so I'm sitting there with like the flow master or the leader of the course that weekend. And he leans across to me and he's like, I friggin' love this. Like his language was a bit more colorful and I don't know why he fucking loved it. Right. Kind of like whispering in the loud way that men whisper. And he's like, if I ever stop loving this, I will can it. But it's 10 years down the track. I still love it. I miss my family, but you know, it gives me a quality of life that I absolutely love. And hearing his words were so beautiful for the passion that he held, but so jarring for me because I was like, I am not fucking enjoying this. I hate getting on a plane. I hate going to countries where I don't know if I can eat because I'm a diagnosed celiac. I don't speak the language. Like this is really hard for me and it's really affecting my health. I need to stop. And it was right in that moment where I was like, I need to quit this. I don't know what I would do instead because this is my main income, but I will figure it out. And I went home and I told Maddie, and we weren't married at this point, but the second that I decided to stop and I did a couple more courses after that, it was sad because it was a part of my identity and who I was. But when I took that step to like listen to that instinct inside me, right, that gut instinct, and take that step to go, this isn't for me anymore. It's a beautiful opportunity, but it's not my opportunity. Let somebody else have it, and had the courage to say no and step away, even though I had no clue what was next. My life flowed for a while after that. Maddie and I got engaged. We really built up our beautiful relationship. We went deeper into the chief life of our business and really skyrocketed with that. We actually traveled. So I quit in, I think, 2016 or early 2017, maybe. No, must have been 2016. Then we got engaged later that year. Then in 2017, we got married and went on an awesome honeymoon. And I did a bodybuilding comp because I finally felt free. Oh, and I did my yoga teacher training. It was like I did all these things that I had not allowed myself to do yet. So 2017 was bodybuilding comp for shits and gigs. 2018 was, no, that was bodybuilding comp. 2017 was yoga. Oh my gosh, I can't even remember the timeline. But what I want to say is then our business took us on our own travels. We wanted to travel, right? Like Maddie wanted to come and do CrossFit headquarters with me because he thought he wanted to teach and travel. And really what we wanted to do was actually do it ourselves. So then the Chief Life allowed us to go on a podcast tour in Europe together. And we wouldn't have had that like flexibility or that freedom if we had been working for another organization. So I think moral of the story for me sharing that, and I don't know why I felt the need to share that, but I think it's very much about like take the risk even when it feels scary. And I'm sure I would love to hear if you've got a story like that where you're like, I don't know if I should take this leap away from safety and security into this unknown, but what came after that then allowed everything to be awesome.
Yeah, I kind of have two that did like working with each other and then helped me to be where I am now. So I was living with a boyfriend at the time. I was working at a day spa. I was working at a day spa as a head therapist, and found out my boyfriend was cheating on me for like 6 months. And I was like, what? But I actually, looking back, I wasn't that sad. It's weird. But I went home to get something for someone at work to come back and found like he was moving stuff out of the house. But if I hadn't been going back to the house, like I wouldn't have known, blah, blah, blah. So, and then in this job, I really wanted to be the manager, and someone else was promoted to be the manager over me, and I was devastated. I was like, what is happening? What? And I wasn't overly, like, I was spiritual and I knew there was a different story. There was a reason why. And then I was looking for a job in spiteful way. I was looking for a job online, and I came up and saw this job for Club Med, and it was up north, living on island, working in the day spa. And I was like, why not? I have nothing holding me here right now. And sure, I went for the interview, pretty much got the job in 2 weeks. I was packing up and I'd gone. And worked in the day spa there. You know, the life of living on an island when you're 20 was wild. Best time of my life in that space. And I then had transitioned to a different job, which not many people know, but I had a dancing background. I loved musical theatre. I wanted to be a choreographer, but my mum kind of took me out of that because it was like, how do you make money from that job if you're not well known, if you're not, extraordinary? So I didn't do that. I then went to do cinematographic makeup, then beauty. That's kind of early, then, track back to where I am now at Club Med. And I actually then went into a position which was teaching everyone how to dance, putting on shows, whatnot. So did that and actually met my husband there. So a guy that I worked with, my husband was his friend. Anyway, we met in that scenario, which we would never have met other than here, right? So then we all lost our jobs, right? And he's very opposite to me. He's very introverted, like he grounds me, right? Like we're the yin and yang, right? So apart from meeting him there, we then, in Club Med, you either get promoted and sent on to another Club Med. That's the whole point. Like you prove yourself, you do amazing things, and then you get sent on. And I wanted to go to another Club Med and do choreography and whatever there. I didn't get promoted and I was really gutted. I was like, I have worked my ass off basically, and I didn't get to that point. And then we lost our jobs because the island closed down, whatever. And I went back to Brisbane, and then Tom was in Melbourne. And I was like, I'm back to where I was. Like I have no other purpose to be here, right? So then I thought, okay, well, in this mode of fixing, which I tend to do, like looking outside, what else should I be seeing right now? I went to Melbourne. I was like, long distance relationship for me is not working. I'm very good adapting to a scenario that I'm in, and a scenario that didn't involve Tom got me all mixed up, and it was, So I moved to Melbourne and worked for the company Endota, which I'd worked for in Brisbane. So that, even though that job at that time was not serving me, I knew I had done it to move me somewhere else. So then I got a job in Melbourne. We got engaged like 9 months later that I was there. Then we married the next year. Like it just flowed. Like I know that moment of feeling like I'm stagnant, I'm not moving anywhere. And that's where you have to think outside the box, that there is another opportunity and there is another place where you could be shining your light. So that for me was Melbourne. So then I worked in a day spa there, and then I got promoted to the training within that company, within that day spa. And then I think I went and did my TAE, so my training and assessing, because I thought maybe I wanted to teach more, what I wanted to share more of what I'd learned. And then I actually worked for head office, and I trained around Australia, and I had this, job that everyone wanted. Like like you did. I mean, I didn't travel internationally, but I was on a plane, I was sleeping in hotels. Like everyone thought that was the dream job.
So glad.
And I was like, I'm alone. Right. And I didn't sleep well while I was away. Like my body was in fight or flight. Like I would come home and I just want to do nothing. And really that wasn't a way to live. But it got me to a point where I was able to see what I needed to do next. And I loved natural health. As I said, I went through my own journey of health and what the system told me versus what I didn't want to happen. And that's probably for another podcast because it's a little bit controversial. So probably not best to start there. And then from there, because we are about controversial, but there is a time and a place, and probably a warning needs to be set and a non-disclaimer so no one gets in trouble. Or a non-disclaimer or a disclaimer, whatever that word is. So yeah, it then took me back into study. But while I could study, I was still working in the day spa because I needed to earn money, because I didn't think that there was any other way that I could do that. And then, fast forward, and now I'm a naturopath working in a clinic, and I realized that I didn't ever want to work as a naturopath full time because it takes a lot of brain power. And for someone like myself who is a empath, can take on a lot of stuff. Like I work really hard to create a space where I don't take on other people's stuff, but still I love giving back. I would give the shirt off my own back for someone if I knew it was going to help make their day better. And I don't say that to like sound up myself, but it is just my core purpose of being here, that if I can empower someone or help someone else to make their day better or feel better, then I'm going to do it, right? But it got to a point where I was like, okay, I want to be a naturopath and I'm not going to do it full time, but how else am I going to earn my money? How else am I going to support my family? And I now have a child that makes me think about not being so frivolous with my money. We were married for 7 years before we had a daughter. So we were frivolous with our money, and all of these things that I didn't realize that I had around money came with me into motherhood. And then that opened another world of going, oh my gosh, do we have enough money? And that scarcity, that not having enough came through. And that's where I guess you and I talk openly about so much stuff. Sometimes we don't agree, most of the time we do, but we bounce off each other, and you make me accountable, and then I come back and challenge you on something. We have this ability to do that, which we want to share, that it's okay to disagree respectfully. And women need to do that more. Be more open about what scares you. What are you not willing to do because of something else? Being fearful, and why are you fearful? Like, I don't know, I kind of jumped a bit then, but that's where the journey of actually knowing that you have a greater purpose, even through the sticky times of going, where am I and what am I doing with my life? Was my point.
Yeah, so powerful. And also like really connecting and trusting your own intuition. And I feel like people become so disconnected from that because it may seem like a spiritual concept, but you all have a gut instinct. We all have a gut instinct. We know when something doesn't feel right. And we know when something feels like uncomfortable, but we know we're meant to do it. And it's being really honest and open with ourselves about that scares me, but that's the thing I'm meant to do versus no, that's not for me, right? And learning what those feelings are in your body. But as a society, this is what they want for us to become disconnected from our bodies so that we can't tune into those sensations. So we don't know what those feelings are anymore. And that is empowerment as well, right? And we want to help people get back to that. I love, though, that you mentioned money just there because it is something that we do want to speak to on this podcast. And working through our money blocks and working through limiting beliefs that were set for us as children that we didn't even know we were carrying into adulthood, like rewiring our brains and our neural pathways or laying down new neural pathways about new beliefs that we want to take into the future so we can break the cycles that have come before. So these are all
for
topics
our children too.
For our children as well, exactly. So we won't dive too deep into that because we wanted today to be more about getting to know us. But if these are topics that you're really excited to hear, then tell us, give us this feedback, because then we will respond to that and we will do those podcast episodes earlier rather than later. But yes, money blocks and releasing limiting beliefs about anything, not just money, but improving your relationship with things that society may tell us are wrong or, like just not the way.
Different.
Yeah, like, as you said before, out of the box thinking and questioning, right? Questioning things, allowing yourself to know that there might be a different way of doing something and it could work for you. And that's where having friends that do disagree with you, not just to disagree, but to, like, as you said before, challenge you or not, just not agree, just be from a different place. That's okay. And it doesn't mean that we don't like each other. It just means that we get to play devil's advocate. And if we still feel the same way as we did at the start of the conversation and we're really clear on our belief system, that's okay. But then it may also plant seeds for us to go, well, actually, maybe there is a different way of thinking about this, and understanding that and asking the questions to have those breakthroughs and experience that growth or that expansion in ourselves. And as you were saying, I think like 20 minutes ago, lay into that ripple effect of paying it forward to other people, right? Like in us having an empowered and passionate conversation, you just listening to this as the listener are going to, hopefully, is our intention, feel empowered. And then you will show up as your best self in your day and inspire somebody else in your life and give them permission to show up as their better, brighter self and be the fucking lighthouse. Like that is essentially my catchphrase, is like, how can you shine brighter? How can you radiate out, not from a cliche, like corny perspective, but from that divine place within yourself that you are not here by accident, right? We are all a miracle. We are all here, whatever your belief system is, we are all here for a reason. We are all here for a purpose. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. So it's starting to help you reclaim your radiance, reclaim your worthiness. And when you show up from that place and stop giving a flying fuck what other people think of you, yeah, it takes time to get there. You're going to have to release some stuff, shed some layers, work through it, either on your own or with the coach or, an energy healer, whatever your path or the intuition is guiding you to. But as you start to peel back these layers and figure out who you truly are and show up as that person without, I was going to say the mask on, but I'm talking about like the metaphorical mask, not the physical masks of the last few years. Like take off that mask, how liberating that is. And I know like the retreats that my husband and I used to run and the conversations we used to have like at the start of the retreat versus at the end of the retreat, and how the women there were men and women on our retreats, but there were a couple of the women that I spoke to at the end of a retreat that were like, this has been one of the most life-changing, liberating experiences of my life in allowing me to see that I can just be me. And how crazy is it that we feel like we can't, like that it was even a thing, that we had to be somebody else, that we were, so that blows my mind. But I want to ask you a question specifically, because you spoke to this before about like the vision that you're showing up for. So what is your vision? What is your greatest passion right now that you're working towards, and why you show up to add this value and be of service?
So that women feel like they have a voice regardless of what they have to say, because everyone's opinion matters, you know, and really like liberation for me, like in that early motherhood stage where I felt like I really cared what people think, and that was never me. I never cared so much about what people thought in that 3 years before, in that 3 years of being a mum. And I thought, I was talking to a business coach and she asked me a similar question. I was like, I just don't want women to have to feel like this, like feel like they don't have a way out, feel like they don't have a purpose, like, or someone listening, or, you know, that empowerment really for me, even back to when I first became a beauty therapist, like I was thinking and sitting with this and I was like, all my adult life, I have been there to remind people that self-care is important, that looking after yourself is important, like what you have to say is important, like you're worthy of spending that money if it helps you feel good. You know, is it about empowered health, like knowing that if you don't feel well and you go to your GP and they tell you everything's fine, knowing that something's not fine and knowing where else to help you find that answer, because what you feel in yourself matters and you matter, and there's someone else that will listen to that. Like working towards really women becoming their divine feminine and their best empowered self, showing that if they were the last person on earth, that they could stand there and be like, yeah, okay, I could create civilization from this. Like I feel like I alone could make a difference, whether people were listening or not. That, I guess, and then helping the new generation come up, showing that our daughters can see that, so that then the world becomes a different place when they get to our age and then they're retelling their story to their children. I think that for me is that bigger vision.
Wow. I haven't heard that yet, because you were saying you only kind of just clicked on that recently.
Yeah.
Massive.
And then doing that in, you know, say if time and money and expenses weren't an issue, then it would be in a retreat form, you know, having a space where you could have a retreat for that 13, 14, 15, 16 tricky age. And then again, a different retreat for that 18 to 25 range, so that these different ages of women can grow up looking at everything so differently, so that when you are a mum or in this next phase, like 35 and up, you are in that next phase. You are then developing a world that is so different, so that when you get to menopause, which is another phase where women re-transform, that you're not there thinking, who am I? What do I do now? My kids are grown up. My body doesn't look the same way as it did 20 years ago. You know, my mind is different. And then really flourishing there, right? Because this is in my job too, where I had this conversation with a lady yesterday because she was adamant she wanted to lose 10 kilos because 20 years ago she did this one diet and then it worked for her then. And I was like, this is the problem, because, well, not a problem, but this is a concern, that women feel like they have to be what they were 20 years ago when your body resets every 7. You know, so having even in that retreat another place for that 40 and above, 50 and above, to know that you are worthy of and having whatever it is you bloody well want in these different phases, but knowing it's okay to be fearful. It's okay to mourn who you were, but knowing then that you can move forward and still be whatever this radiant light, whatever this world needs you to be.
Yeah.
So I think for me, like, yes, there is that empowerment side. However, we're going to make that happen, whether it be a non-for-profit organization where we help the less fortunate, you know, make better choices. I don't know what that looks like yet, but a retreat space, something that we can embody, you know, yoga and meditation and, you know, having consults with a naturopath, like all of that kind of stuff in one place, but for every age group.
Amazing. That is so cool.
Yeah.
I love that you touched on
What about
menopause.
you?
Well, I love that you touched on menopause and also rites of passage. So before I answer the question for myself, I just wanted to speak to this, and this is controversial, and a lot of people will be like, you haven't been there yet, you don't get it. And so no, I haven't been there yet, and I will, hold my tongue if I get there and it's not what I thought. But in not knowing yourself, in not breaking cycles before you get to menopause, so many women have all of these awful symptoms when they go through menopause, and that's not normal. It's common, but it is not normal, and it means there is something wrong, and you need to work with a naturopath or a holistic health coach to figure out the root cause of why. But also it can be from how you are living your younger years. So if you got into alignment earlier and figured out who you are and went through the other rites of passages without carrying all your bag of trauma with you everywhere you go, when you get to menopause to become the wise woman, the old crone, right? That is not a negative word. That is not negative connotation associated with that. It's a beautiful, amazing pinnacle of society that people look up to. You get to enjoy that phase of your life. And you know what? I know women that are doing it and have done it. Mic drop. But also now I want to answer the question that you asked before.
Yeah.
There's so much more to share on that topic.
I love it. Yeah.
I feel like we could do a menopause episode, and I would love to get Christiane Northrup on our podcast. How cool would that be to talk about menopause as a rite of passage? But anyway, just plant that seed.
That would be so cool.
She's written some amazing books. Yeah, she has written some amazing books. So if you're hearing us talk about this and you're like, well, where is this magic pony that you've spoken about now, or this magic unicorn? Go and read one of her books about menopause and then explore and action some of the stuff that she says. My vision, mine's a little bit more selfish than yours. Very much so. It's also about creating a retreat space and with my family. So having land where we, grow our own food, but also have like a separate section where people can come and stay. So I guess very much the same in terms of like how we can support that and not needing to ask for money exchange or a lot of money exchange, right? I believe that it's important to have some kind of investment from people because they're much more likely to value something when they pay attention. So even if it's like pay what you can kind of thing, and then that money gets used to go back into the retreat space to look after it, because, we're going to be millionaires from our shampoo company and all the other things that we do alongside, which we haven't even mentioned on this podcast. But the other part of my vision is around creating a foundation that allows women to birth how they want. And this has actually been on my heart for a long time. And now being a founder in the company that we've partnered with, as my shares grow, that is what that money is designed for. So, I guess I can say this on our podcast, but once we are financially free, then there's surplus, and then there's the ability to put that into something to give back to community. Now, we can obviously give back in smaller ways, but in order to create change in the system, and it's already starting to move, even since we birthed our babies, like things are starting to change. Home birth is now going to be funded for some people next year in Australia or in Queensland. Insane that's even a thing here.
Good.
Yeah, it's incredible. But the way we're born dictates how we behave in the world. Like that is a scientific fact. If, all babies go through trauma because birth is traumatic, but if it can be as gentle as possible for both mother and baby, and then mother learns the skills that she is meant to learn through that journey rather than being disempowered and having her decision-making processes taken away from her, that impacts her relationship with her baby. And all of those terrible cycles start from the second she goes through that rite of passage and passes them straight on and imprints them into her child. So again, probably a podcast for another time, but just think about how many people that has probably happened to. And how much healing needs to go on in order to change the way that our children are coming into the world and paying that forward for generations to come. So yeah, I would love for a legacy or a foundation to be created to allow families to birth how they want to birth. If that's in the hospital system, great. If that's in a home birthing center because they can't birth in their actual own home, great. Like that is the idea behind that foundation. And that is the legacy that I want to leave for generations to come. So we've got our retreat. It could be 5 in the same place or in a different place to our home birth center. But yeah, I guess creating that and then having those pop up all over Australia would be like the great vision. But yeah, the selfish part is first and foremost like my family, having our own space, but close enough to community, because we are such social people. You know, we like to interact with people. We don't want to like isolate ourselves out on a farm and never see anybody. But then that's the beauty of having a retreat space, because then you can invite people to come and be there with you. You know, you share the cooking together, you share the meals together, you share the looking after the farm together, because that's a big job in itself. I mean, people could come and work on the farm, and that could be how they exchange, like that's their payment to coming to experience the retreat. So there's so many avenues that we could go with this. And you mentioned before, like if, you know, time and energy and resources weren't a thing, that's probably what we would both be doing. It sounds like together, maybe even.
Yeah. Yes.
And then part of me goes, well, why aren't we doing it? And I guess we don't have the time and the energy and the resources yet. And so we get to work towards it. And the cool thing is we spoke about vision just before we started recording. And Em was saying how when you were younger, do you want to share? Like, what was your vision when you were younger and how it shifted a lot?
Yeah. So when I said we should have like a main question, we asked someone like time or money, what would you do if you had no boundaries, right? And I have asked myself this question a lot through my life. And for me, when I was younger, and probably till recently, because I actually didn't realize that the retreat was on my heart to do. Like I've always thought about like a multi-modality clinic, but I wanted it more luxurious than that, more like bigger and,
Bougie.
you know, that encompassed everything. Bougie, yeah. Somewhere I would want to go and run and not have to go to a 9-to-5 job kind of thing. Like there was that selfish part, you know, where I want to be able to live my day as I want to live my day, whether it be working from my office in my home or whatever it be, by my phone, out at a retreat, out on a farm, whatever.
In the pool.
Yes. But then for me, it was like, oh my gosh, like I wanted to be a performer. Like I wanted to, if, you know, looks, and because I was always too tall and a bit too curvy to be on stage. So that fell away a bit quicker than I would have liked to admit. But like being a performer, like I would have loved to have been on Broadway, right? Like, but now I realize like that is still something I love. Like I'll watch any musical till the cows come home, right? But now it's so different, like to be able to think and sit in what would you do? And I've actually asked my husband this so many times, and he actually can't answer me. And probably because I am very much grey, and he, you know, grew up in a very black and white, you know, if you're not going to go to uni, then you'll work. And, you know, he was happy enough doing that, which is fine. But no one had ever said to him, if you could do anything in this world, what would you do? And that didn't happen when he was younger. And maybe, I don't know, I don't remember my mum ever asking me that, but I just did. Like I thought that's the way I just always thought was against the grain. Like, and for me to be able to go now at 35, like actually what would I do? Because as much as I love dancing and, you know, performing and stuff, that's not what I want to do. You know, you could definitely change someone's life doing that, you know, through entertainment for sure. But I was like, this vision's bigger. Like my voice is bigger than that. And what would it be? So that retreat dropped in recently, and I was like, that is what I want, a place for women to be themselves.
And the retreat can encompass some of those other skills that you have, right? You know how to choreograph. So you could have a dance class at the retreat for the people that aren't drawn to yoga that want to do a dance class.
For sure, yeah. I was a Zumba instructor for a very short period of my life too, so that might, you know, come back in.
Love it. I love it. It's so interesting because we went up to Maddie's aunt and uncle's property last year for like a family holiday, and it was like, you know, a snippet of what we would be like. We were looking after the farm and how we would feel like living in that kind of environment, and they weren't there. So it was really kind of gave us a glimpse of that, and we loved it, but it was a lot of work. And so that's why I think it is important to have that idea behind like other people are going to come and do it with you. But it was also, as I said before, very isolating for like social people that like their introverted recharge time, but then also can, you know, enjoy interaction. There was something else I was going to say off the back of, oh, yes, we were driving around the property and I said to Maddie, I just had this feeling of like, I am where I wanted to be 10 years ago.
Mm.
Like if, you know, so I'm 38 in a month. That's insane to me. We both love birthdays, by the way. So, you know, if you ever want to celebrate our birthdays with us, we're all for that. But going back to what my 28 or 27, almost 28-year-old self wanted to do, this was it. Be married with a couple of children, like, you know, living a life of flexibility on my terms. I'd made it. And I was like, far out. I've fulfilled the vision that I had for myself. Like I'm living by example in the way that like that was literally my vision, is live by example. And I know it just sounds like a throwaway term, but there was so much in my head and the thought process that got me from where I was to where I wanted to be. And now I guess it can still be live by example, but that has expanded into, okay, and now how can we like pay it forward to other people as well, which is so powerful. Sure. But yeah, okay. So in terms of final parting words, is there anything that you want to share? Or do you have a moment to just do a couple more things?
Yeah.
Or a hobby in the background? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, did you?
Yeah.
I didn't see. I might just close the door.
Well, if you have time to answer it, what I was going to say was, and this is the juggle with mum life, guys. Okay. So this is the beauty of another part of, or a layer of this podcast that we want to put out into the world. But what scares you? If there's one thing that you could say, like, okay, that freaks me the fuck out, like, what would it be?
I actually hate flying. So that's like a physical fear. Just don't like it. But probably being on my, this probably sounds a bit morbid, but it's not meant to be, but being on my deathbed and not feeling like I've fulfilled my purpose or lived intentionally the way that I wanted to live, like having no regrets, right? I generally don't live with regrets. Like I will see a silver lining. I mean, I'm very accountable to myself, so I'll be like, oh, that was a mistake, shouldn't have done that. But was there a lesson I learned in that? Sure.
And not beating yourself up about it,
but
seeing it for the blessing that it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. And some people might think, well, you know, there's awful things that happen in this world. And I'm like, yeah, there is. But what is this other opportunity that we need to see within what's happening, right? I saw, it's from a movie, but I posted it the other day. Morgan Freeman, I think, is God in this movie. And he was like, people pray for, you know, things, whatever it may be, you know, and do you get given those things, or do you get given a reason to think about how you get those things, or how you make a decision on something else? I can't even for the moment think of one of the specifics, but I just thought, you know what, that is so true. Like, be accountable for the things that you messed up, that you didn't do correctly. And then you go, I acknowledge what I did, and you move on and you find what it was that you were meant to see in that particular point. So for me, not having regrets, because having regrets means you didn't do all of the things that I just said, you know, you weren't living in alignment. For me, that would be terrifying.
Yeah.
To just do something because I thought I had to. Yeah.
And I think having that thought process, or having that as something that scares you, is really a driver for not letting it happen. Like, it's less likely for it to happen because you've got that awareness around it.
Absolutely. But yeah, like, can you tell me, so what's your fear?
Well,
I feel like you don't have any because you've worked on all of the things.
No, there's one. So my physical one, similar to your flying one, is bees and wasps. I don't care what the difference is between them. If it's yellow and black and it buzzes, get it away from me. Like, I will run away. And I've been stung multiple times in the UK growing up. And each time the reaction got worse, to the point where I think it's probably anaphylactic now. So I just have this thing built up in me where I'm like, And it's probably from some past life where, you know, I died from a bee sting or something, which is crazy to me because I'm not actually scared of death. I don't have fear around dying because I know it. And again, this is probably a podcast for another time. Like, way to wrap up the podcast, Stacey. We're going deep. But I think it's more similar to what you said, is that I haven't fulfilled my purpose yet. I haven't achieved the thing that I'm here to achieve. So if I did get stung by a bee now, it's too soon. I'm not ready yet.
Yeah.
And so then, it's like, my like metaphysical or my bigger thing is like, I have a purpose to fulfill and it's not done yet. And I also have the dream to hold my grandchildren and even my great-grandchildren. So I'm here for a long time, not just a good time, you know?
Yeah.
And on that note.
Even thinking about being grandparents is like mind-blowing to me.
It excites the hell out of me. Like and hearing my daughter say that she wants to have like 60 children or however many she's up to at the moment, like that really warms my heart because I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Like she is not wounded by the stuff that, like, I wanted to be a mum from her age too, but like just that really nurturing energy.
You're going to need that farm, babe.
I'm going to need that farm. The table is going to be surrounded by the time.
Maddie's going to love decorating for Christmas for like 60 grandkids.
Exactly. And I think that's why I'm actually at peace with 2 children. Like I had this realization the other day. I actually think I want to live the best damn life I can with my 2.4 family. And then we get to like live it up like my parents are with my kids. They're, you know, they're getting a beautiful opportunity to like give back in a way where mum had to work her butt off and wasn't around. So now she's getting to like love on my kids when she's in the era that she can do that. And I'm excited to do that for my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So no bee stings, no wasp stings, stay away. Got a lot I need to do.
Yeah.
Any parting words that you want to leave the audience with? I feel like it's been a pretty deep episode to kick off with.
Yeah, we've gone on a bit of a roller coaster here, haven't we? But I love that. Not really. Like, I think I've said what I needed to say, and I've made some notes on definitely things that we'll go deeper in eventually. Like, obviously we'll be interviewing other empowering women and getting their versions of life, and but we will come back and have a chat. Thank you, message, and we will come back and talk about the things that really resonate with us, like empowered birth and empowered health, and lots of different things. There was another one which I didn't write down, so we'll have to discuss that if you remembered what it was before. But no, I hope everyone enjoys what we have to say, and
if you don't,
please
we
just
also
reach
don't
out
care because we're going to keep doing it anyway.
We're not
but
for
we
everyone.
love you.
Love and
we
light.
Still love you.
Yes. But let us know what you want to hear. But enjoy the ride. It's going to be wild.
Definitely. And we'll probably do kind of like seasons and then have a little break and then do another season. But if there's someone specific that you would like us to interview, please shoot us a message. If there's something that you've taken away from this episode that you're like, oh my gosh, that was gold, message us or chuck it up on Instagram with a screenshot of the podcast, and share that and tag us, and we would love to see that. So awesome. Well,
and we would love for you to share our podcast as well. With that, we want this message. We want what we have to say, whether you agree with it or not, to people that need to hear it.
Because you might not agree with it.
We are about change.
Exactly. You might not agree with it, but someone might need to hear it or might take something different away from it. So we would love, as I said before, like, we share and we will show up, and we do want to know if you like it, but we're not going to be upset by it if you don't like it. So you can be honest with us, and you can tell us the good, the bad, the ugly. We would just love to hear from you. But have a wonderful rest of your day whenever you're listening to this. And thanks, Em, for jumping back on this ride with me that you suggested and I've now taken over.
No, I mean, babe, you are the mastermind. I'm really just here for the voice, like the amount of stuff that you've been able to put together. Like, your brain, it just inspires me every day.
So fun. And I'm a mirror of you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, babe,
Peace out. Love you.
And that's a wrap for today's episode. Listen, if you love what you heard here today, I would love for you to leave a super quick rating and a review. This helps the show get discovered by new people that need to hear what we have to share. Be sure to take a screenshot of today's episode and shout us out on Instagram, and we will shout you right back. You can find us on Instagram handles It's Stacey Turner and the.emma.mcdonald. If you'd like to find additional resources or work with either of us, then DM us on one of these handles today.